As you all creep up to the inner sanctum, you notice at the far end is a group of cultists performing some kind of ritual. Briggs, with that last perception check, you notice that there are 2 sets of guards patrolling the perimeter. Luckily, none have circled towards your location yet. What do you all do?
Good! It looks like we're in for a fight. Surprise or no. Form up. I'll be in the front, of course. You all stay the hell back.
Totally. Like, I'm not even here.
Ooh, because you're casting invisibility?
What now?
Oh, it'll be behind you to be sure, Brunhilde, but not that far back. Consider me somewhere in the middle.
What middle? Front or back? That's it.
Well, you see, the way I'll be moving around, sometimes I'll be up near the enemies, and sometimes I'll be further back. So you could say I'm somewhere in the middle.
Dude, you're either up in melee or you're not me.
Briggsy, just hop back with us, man. Cool kids in the back, bro.
Yeah, totally. Cool.
I love how hard you try.
No, being that far back does not put me in a good position.
Amongst all of this conversation, you all suddenly hear another voice say,
Right then, where you want us to be?
and as you turn to see where that came from, you notice one of those guard patrols has circled towards your location and has just heard everything you've said. Roll initiative.
Seems about right.
Who saw this coming? We totally walked right into that one.
I chop his head off!
Always watching for epic games. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Vigilant Games channel. My name is GMKC, and I am currently writing my own role-playing game because the midline exists. These videos are where I discuss mechanics, game narrative, and how the two synergize in order to simulate that amazing experience that only TTRPGs can provide. A little while ago, DM's Guild designer and overall a very rad dude, Tavern, over on his YouTube channel Indestructiboy, streamed a homebrew class design masterclass. That is a masterclass on designing classes for 5e D&D, not a masterclass on class design of classes in like the teaching sense, but it was a teaching thing because it was a masterclass. You guys follow what I'm putting down, right? For those of you who don't know, Tavern is indeed a very successful designer of 5e material over on the DM's Guild. And a lot of his work has reached levels of either Electrum or even Gold status. In addition, material that he has collaborated on, such as Tasha's Crucible of Everything Else Volumes 1 and 2, have reached levels of Platinum and even top 1% status. I bring this all up because, the guy knows a little bit about what he's talking about. I'm just saying, he's found success in the area and he's trying to pass that knowledge along. Let's just keep that frame of reference in mind. Here at Vigilant Games, I am always about supporting independent creators and independent designers of games or sub-series stuff of existing games. So please go check him out if you haven't already. I've linked his stuff in videos before. I'll link it again in the description, up top, wherever you want to click. Go and check Indestructiboy out here on YouTube. In his masterclass stream, Tavern revisited 3 of his old videos posted back in 2020 that were all entitled Character Playstyle, the first of which had to do with zones. Now that's quite interesting, and I actually liked when I saw that video because it reminded me a little bit of my video talking about zones way back. It was my very first video ever posted. I'll link it up top. Now, it's not exactly the same perspective of talking about zones. I was talking about it more as like a, in the midst of play, how we describe distance from each other. He's talking about zones in terms of game design and what classes are designed to do. These zones, the front line, the midline, point of the video, pay attention, and the back line are, in his experienced opinion, what help define the class's hit die, as well as some other features and how they're designed to operate within the framework of the class. I won't go into an entire explanation of this. Please visit his masterclass stream. I'll have a link of that as well. He posts all of his streams as VODs, so go check that out if you really want the full perspective and to experience the learning opportunity that he provided for it. Now, lately, Tavern has also been streaming the design progress of his latest work, the Runekeeper class. Through this video right now, I kind of feel like I'm feeling like a news reporter a little bit. Like I'm just kind of, it's all necessary context. I promise you. But I just feel like lately Tavern has frequently been posting videos. Like I'm reading a headline or something. In the stream he did only a couple of days after the posting of his masterclass. And this is very important here because this is kind of what inspired doing this video at all in the first place. During this stream, someone in chat, I won't mention names, posed a series of questions kind of digging at Terran's concept of the midline and really trying to bore into that and understand. At first, this person was asking in kind of you could tell maybe they just didn't understand what was going on, and as it progressed, it kind of just, this person kind of just devolved into attacking Tavern in ways and slandering him, trying to make him look bad. But I don't want to get into much of the drama of that. It was just really unnecessary. When you're in chat, just respect each other, please. I mean, that's not the point of this video, but sidebar, just respect each other in chat. It's a very, very simple thing to do. In this commenter's opinion, the concept of the midline did not exist because in optimal play, anyone who isn't in the front line, aka right up in melee range of one or multiple of the enemies, is just considered to be in the back line. This launched an entire back and forth where Tavern attempted multiple times to try to both understand what this commenter was asking and to try to get at the meat of what their like setback was with trying to accept this concept, and also trying to answer the questions the best that he could. Sometimes things get lost when you're dealing with a text conversation versus a person-to-person conversation. We all know this. So Tavern was really doing his best to understand the situation and what was going on. He even went as far as to bring in pack tactics. I think he hopped on Discord and saw if pack tactics was like awake this time, because I think pack tactics is in the UK. But yeah, so he even went as far as to bring in pack tactics, because this commenter specifically clearly was of the optimizer persuasion, and he made it very clear that he was only really going to listen to someone of a similar mindset, which is an interesting perspective to bring into the discussion at all, because this wasn't a stream about neither the masterclass stream nor the stream that was currently going on had anything to do with optimization. And I'm going to get more into that later. Unfortunately, during this whole discussion between Tavern and pack tactics, and I don't know pack tactics' actual name, nor do I know if he would want it used or not. I only used Tavern's name because although he's Indestructible on YouTube, he publishes his work on DM's Guild as Tavern. So I'm assuming it's okay to use his name and that he's cool with that. But yeah, during this whole discussion between the two, there was a very unfortunate disconnect. And that's not entirely Pack Tactics' fault, right? He was jumping on to the stream as a favor to Tavern to just kind of help out. He was clearly doing other things. I think he was getting ready for like exams or something. I know he's in school, so he had other obligations to attend to. Wasn't fully focused on the discussion, just kind of like pulled in randomly, and he discussed to the best of his ability at the time. But before I get into really like why there was a disconnect, because I do think that there was a very specific reason that there was a disconnect going on, and it goes back to the optimizing thing. But before I delve into that, I want to touch briefly on what exactly is this midline that I'm referring to and what it means from a design perspective. Again, please watch Indestructible's video for the full details. When the playstyle of a character involves them needing to move back and forth relatively consistently between the front line, being up in melee range of enemies, and the back line being completely away from enemy reach, this would be referred to as the midline. These characters will usually have a D8 hit die, and they will have some form of armor that makes them more protected than like your typical backline character, like a wizard or a sorcerer, but not as chunky as a frontliner, like your strength fighters and your barbarians. Some examples of this midliner from a design perspective, again, a design midliner, would be like a rogue who is using melee weapons, has to jump in and deal their damage, right? Hopefully getting that sneak attack off, and then jumping out, disengaging using their cunning action, and getting out of there so that they don't take a hit. Because they don't want to take a hit. They just want to get in, they want to strike, and they want to get out. Another example would be a cleric relying on cure wounds for healing, right? That cleric would want to have access to all of their allies, both the ones in the front and the ones in the way back. So staying in the middle of those allies is going to be the most beneficial thing to them, right? They want to be able to run up to whoever needs the healing, okay? If that is their main function, and based on a lot of their features and their D8 hit die and everything, many clerics will operate in this midline. And that's really it in a nutshell, right? I mean, this isn't really that complicated. The midline is simply another tool at the designer's dispense to use in order to determine what kind of playstyle something they're designing would viably use. Keyword there, viably use, not optimally use. Getting into that soon. So, why was there a disconnect here? Well, I mean, this is just, one goofball's opinion, but based on what I was seeing, I think, and my own experience in other types of conversations like this, I really think it comes down to 2 points. Okay. Number one is just the difference between how an optimizer thinks of the game and how a designer thinks of the game. Okay? These two perspectives are very, very different. When a designer looks at the game, they're not looking at this from what is the most optimal choice in every situation with these features that I'm trying to make. That's not the perspective that they're coming from. It's not about optimal gameplay. You see, when it comes to optimal gameplay, you can't design for that. You can't predict what every person is going to come up with, given the game over time and how often they're playing it and how many different things they're trying and combining. A designer simply looks at the thing they're designing. I'll use class here because that was what this was about. A designer is looking at the class they're designing and saying, what do I want this class to do? And how do I want them to do it within the rules of this system that I'm working with? That's it. Oh yeah, and I want to make it fun. Like, hopefully. Hopefully that's the thing going on in their mind. So when you're in this discussion and you make an argument like it is the more optimal choice for a rogue to stay far back and use a bow, this was an actual argument presented in the discussion, not by Pack Tactics, by the original commenter. That's has no bearing on the conversation at all. It doesn't matter that that may be the optimal choice in play, because it's better to stay back and not take the chance of being hit at all. Because then you don't have to worry about running up and getting into the danger zone by getting into melee and then jumping back. You just stay back. It doesn't, not everyone wants to play that way. And looking at the rogue's features, that's not the only thing that they're designed around, right? Is to sit back with a bow. You can do that, and you can do that very well, for sure. But that's not the only way to play a rogue, and that's not the intent behind the rogue, was to only play that way. So to use that as an argument for saying, well, I optimally do this, therefore midline doesn't exist, is silly. And I'm not sure if this person realized how silly they were being in the moment, because I don't think that they were looking outside of their own perspective. And that's really kind of the point, isn't it? Not looking outside of their own perspective. A designer has to look outside of their own perspective constantly. That's what they're used to doing. I get this because, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm designing my own tabletop game. That's why I started this whole channel in the first place, is because this is where I wanted to get my ideas out and involve people in discussions, because I wanted to seek perspective outside of my own. This is very important, and I'm going to need you to pay attention here, right? Especially anyone that's like disagreeing with me so far. Just because something is discussed in the design process does not mean that it's something that the players need to think about. I'll give you that a minute to sink in. I'll say it again. Just because something is discussed in the design process does not mean that it's something that the players need to think about. Okay? Think of it from the perspective of a video game designer. Video game designers work with code, right? They work with tons and tons of different code that means all kinds of things so that the game and the engine that it's on can talk to each other and communicate, right? The players of this game never have to know about that code. Don't have to think about its existence at all to enjoy the game. It's never going to come up. Unless you're somebody that like develops mods or something. So even though the designers use this coded language and the players never see this coded language, don't have to think about it, does that mean that the coded language doesn't exist? I don't think I have to answer that for you. So just because a term, any term, is used when designing something, any kind of language used in the design process does not have to reflect on what the player views and what the player says and how the player thinks about the game. It doesn't have to be brought up at all by the player. The players don't have to think about it. So, and I bring this up because an optimizer is a player. They're thinking of the game from how they want to play as a character and what the most optimal choices are for the thing that they want to do. So they're a player. Hence, you don't have to use the term midline if you don't like it. It has nothing to do with your optimization. It has to do with the design process and aiding designers. Now, getting on to my second point, I did say I had 2 points regarding the disconnect between Terran and Pack Tactics. So getting on to that second point, I gotta ask the optimizers out there. Guys, gals, I love you. I love you as optimizers. I love what you bring to the game. I love your deep understanding of the rules. I love your creative brain and what you think, the combinations that you're able to come up with and everything. I'm not an optimizer myself, so it's really cool when I see somebody else do it. I don't want to do it. I don't care to play that way. But it's cool when I see other people do it. I love watching Treant Monk. I love watching Pack Tactics and everything that they do. Why, when you guys are involved in any discussion regarding this game, any discussion, do you not understand what it means to take that optimizer hat off and put it away? Because not every conversation is about what is the optimal choice. I'm asking this question earnestly because I don't understand. I've had conversations with optimizers while playing the game, while DMing the game, while in the YouTube comment section, in comments of my own videos, in watching streams like this. More times than not, I experience optimizers not understanding how to look at the game without thinking about optimization. I get that that is your preferred discussion. That is the way that you want to look at the game. But not every discussion is about that, and not every discussion can benefit from what's the optimal choice. That's not always the point of a topic. And while I feel like anyone else in a different mindset, anyone who's not an optimizer, whether they're a heavy role player, whether they're a designer, whether they're, I don't know, any other kind of mindset of looking at this game, we're able to break away from that. And when an optimizer brings up a point, like, I can acknowledge, oh yeah, I totally see why you're saying that that's the optimal choice to make. The numbers make sense. The efficiency of the action economy makes sense. I get it. I get why you're suggesting that. So I can acknowledge that, but then also continue to, do my own thing. Just say, like, I get what you're saying. I'm not going to make that choice unless it makes sense for my character. But I get what you're doing, for sure. I can acknowledge that, and I can be involved in that conversation and add things to it, even though I'm not an optimizer, and I don't have an optimizer's brain. But I recognize when the conversation is about optimization, and I'll either hang back and listen and just try to absorb, or if I feel I have something that I could add, then I will add it if it has to do with optimization, because that's the point of the conversation. But optimizers, I feel, want to be involved in every conversation about Dungeons & Dragons. Every single one, and they always want to talk about optimization, even when it has nothing to do with the topic. And I bring this up because this was a stream about design. It's about design implementation, about designing features. Your optimal choice as a player has nothing to do with this topic. And I feel like if this commenter had acknowledged that, then there wouldn't have been a long drawn out this conversation lasted like over an hour in the stream. And it would have been great if this went somewhere and was actually helping someone understand what Taryn was trying to say, and they had legitimate questions and were being open-minded. It would have been great. But this person just kept bringing up optimization arguments. But I would just do this. But we should just call it the back line, because it's because if you're not in the front line, then you're just in the back line. Pack Tactics even said that. Yeah, Pack Tactics even brought up that you're either in the front or in the back. I don't understand midline. I have to disagree with you about the midline. I love Pack Tactics. I really do. I brought that up. But I feel like he was the wrong person to bring on in this discussion. He just was. I mean, and it's not Pack Tactics' fault. It's just that Pack Tactics and Tavern think about the game completely differently. And Pack Tactics was not able, especially in the short time he had, was not able to pull himself out of what is optimal in a given scenario versus how we design. And these are two very different things. I mean, let's just reference that Pack Tactics does not believe that anyone should play a melee character, like ever. Because staying as far away from the enemies and just using range stuff is, based on the way that the game works right now, is just the most optimized thing that you can do, and no one should bother playing melee. That is an opinion that he has, and it may be valid. I don't know. I don't look at the game the way that Pack Tactics does. But I'll tell you this right now. I will never not play a melee character. I play both melee and ranged characters, but I'm never going to not play a melee character just because it's not the most optimal thing to do. And no one designing for the game is going to design around the idea that, optimizers aren't going to play melee characters. No one's going to design the game that way. No one's going to design a new class that way. I guess we'll just not make any more melee classes because no one's going to use them optimally. Like, see, this kind of mindset is why this conversation unfortunately went nowhere. Let me touch back on when Pack Tactics was bringing up how he was viewing the positioning, right? So Pack Tactics viewed the positioning as where someone was at any given moment, right? The whole, if the wizard's in front, then he's the frontliner in that moment. And that was clearly missing the point, because when we're talking about these positions in the design space, right? These frontline, midline, backline positions in the design space is reference to where the character is viably meant to be played based on their features. A wizard has a D6 hit die, no armor, and tons of ranged options. The design of the wizard is clearly saying to the player, hey, stay way back there, way out of enemy reach. Do not get hit. You do not want to get hit, ever. Stay way back there and shoot off your spells from the back. That's what the design of the wizard is saying. What the player does with that is completely out of the designer's hands. You can't, if somebody wants to play a wizard and run, not a blade singer, and run up into melee, they can do that. It has nothing to do with what the designed features are saying to do. Another one. Barbarians have a D12 hit die. They have unarmored defense based on Constitution. Very important that it's based on Constitution. Or medium armor, depending on, it's your choice. Normally they go with unarmored defense. And they're very keyed into using strength-based melee weapons. Clearly, the design of the barbarian is saying, get up in the face of the enemy, take hits. That's what you're going to be good at doing. I mean, they even get resistance to all the physical damage, which is extending their health pool even more. The design of the barbarian is keyed into get up in the face of the enemy, take the hits. That's what you're supposed to do, based on the feature design. A monk has a D8 hit die. Okay, we're getting into another midliner territory. Has a D8 hit die. They have a disengage tool. They have unarmored defense based not on constitution, on wisdom. A very important distinction. Because the barbarian's unarmored defense based on constitution means that constitution is going to be very viable for them to pump into for both their health and their AC. They're gaining double the benefit, meaning they're more likely going to have a much higher hit point pool than the monk, who has to already worry about wisdom and dexterity and now is going to try to jungle constitution in there somewhere, but it's not going to be a top priority. Okay, so their unarmored defense is based on wisdom, not constitution. They have the disengage tools, and they have stunning features. They have their stunning strike. The design of the monk is clearly saying, weave in and out of the battle. Get in and out of melee range because you want to be attacking as many different individual targets as possible. You do not want to be there taking the hits because you're not going to have the hit points to deal with that too much. Okay? You have enough to protect you, but you don't want to be sitting there taking hits. You get in, you stun, you get out, and you go to the next one. That's what the design of the monk is saying. Again, this is the basics of what these classes are designed to do. This is the mind space of the designers. When I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about what do I want a barbarian to do? And I write features based around that. What the player does then has nothing to do with it, right? What the optimizer's choices are have nothing to do with why I initially designed something this way. In summation, the concept of the midline exists in viable play. There, pure and simple, it exists. It's viable. It's a thing that we use. It's a term useful for designers who wish to create classes and subclasses. It is not a term that the players and optimizers have to care about or acknowledge or use in any way, but that does not mean that it doesn't exist. Optimizers, buddies, not every conversation benefits from spouting out what the most optimal choice is. I love you all, but please acknowledge that. See what the point of the conversation is. Listen to what people are talking about and saying and what their perspectives are. And don't jump in with optimal play talk unless it has a valid point in the conversation. I hope this video has helped you all understand a bit more about the design headspace, where designers are coming from, and how different their perspective is on the game. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, stay vigilant. Peace out. Bonus point! During the conversation between Terran and Pack Tactics, there was discussion on certain language that we should be changing when discussing D&D, and how we shouldn't be talking about it in terms making it sound too video gamey or just gamey. I bring this up because I found it very interesting that this was coming from an optimizer. This was coming out of the mouth of an optimizer. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're an optimizer watching this video, but when you're optimizing, aren't you trying to game the game? You're looking at mechanics, you're playing with combos, you're literally looking at the elements that make this a game and trying to use those to your benefit. So it was weird that that was coming from Pack Tactics, who is obviously an optimizer. Look, view the game however you want. I know that when I sit down to play the game, I'm not really looking at it as a game either, right? I'm a really heavy role player. So I kind of just get lost in my character, I get lost in the story, I roll the dice when appropriate, I just kind of listen to the DM, and yeah, that's so I get that. But at the end of the day, this is a game. And when you're designing, especially, you have to look at it as a game. To say to a designer, don't look at this thing that you're writing for as a game is weird. It's just an odd thing to say. Like, if the designer doesn't look at it as the game, what are they designing for? Do you want designers to just write a story? Do you want designers to just write novels and then you try to play a novel? I don't understand the point of view of saying we need to eliminate this language, especially when it was coming from an optimizer being said to a designer. That was just, it blew my mind that was even being brought up in this conversation. It was really, really weird. So yeah, if anyone wants to throw in a little comment on that, go for it. I would love to hear some other perspectives on that. All right, guys, peace out.